I've been talking about abolishing the police now for the past, I guess, couple of months. But and Michael Malice has been cheering for it on Twitter. But it's not for the same reason, for the most part. You know, so Michael said when we had Alex Jones on the show, he said that it's his constitutional right to keep and bear arms to defend himself. Mm-hmm. And every single cop in New York City would arrest him if he tried to uphold his own rights. And that's why he said every single cop was bad. And Alex was like, no, you can't say that. That's wrong. And
only Michael Malice can make Alex Jones the moderate.
Right. And that's, but so I actually do think we need police. The problem is they shouldn't be following unconstitutional orders, enforcing illegal laws, or taking illegal action. But now the main reason, because I've had people message me saying, Tim, you're wrong about abolishing the police. Well, hold on. Have you been paying attention to what's going on? What story did we just cover just in the last segment? Portland Antifa in blackout gear, which they've been doing the whole time, now with rifles, stopping vehicles, smashing out their windows, attacking pedestrians and regular folk. And when a guy tries to get through and draws on them, because they drew on him already, they knock him down, they take his gun. Where are the cops? The cops can't stop Antifa. In Portland, the majority of people who were arrested, even on felony charges, even people who confessed to attacking cops, had their charges dropped. But guess what? The FBI is hunting down each and every single conservative. In New York City, when the Proud Boys fought Antifa, those Proud Boys are now in prison. The system is broken. It's corrupted. We are watching all of this happen every day. And the cops may be neutral arbiters, but it's a sorting algorithm where they are funneling people on left and right into a justice system that is only punishing the right and moderates and those who are standing up for small businesses. I assure you, if you live in the Portland area, and these groups with guns come out, if you even try to defend yourself, you will get locked up. We've already seen it happen. One guy who drew on these Black Lives Matter protesters, he got charged. I think he got a felony or something. He had a felony charge. And he was legally bearing his arm, which is allowed to do. And there was a group, a raucous group, which is known to have been violent in protest. And he drew on them. You could argue the whole thing all day and night, but a felony charge? So here's what's going to happen. Conservatives have consistently defended the cops, and I understand why, because cops do a tough job. But then we started seeing cops shut down small businesses, arrest small business owners, and then conservatives started saying, nah, I'm done with this, and throwing the thin blue line flag in the dirt and stomping on it. Now it's starting to come back to defending cops again. And I'm like, do you realize you're the target? In New York City, it's like, 20% conservative? It's like very few conservatives. When Antifa goes around smashing up windows, these people aren't going to go to jail. When you go and in any way defend yourself or defy these restrictions, they will lock you up in 2 seconds. It was the funniest thing when that salon owner in Texas, I think it was, she got arrested for opening her salon while they were letting the criminals out of the jail. They were saying, we can't have criminals in jail because of COVID, but she can.
And they were saying it was dangerous for COVID to open your salon, but we will take you and put you in jail where there's this massive COVID outbreak. And
absolutely.
We're letting people out. But
and that's inhumane to put someone into a pandemic situation.
Absolutely.
Cruel and unusual.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's inhumane to put a human being in a cage for the crime of opening their business, period. But particularly in a pandemic.
While letting the criminals out.
Have you heard the term anarcho-tyranny before? Because that's what this is describing. So the idea of anarcho-tyranny is the idea that you have the worst of both worlds, right?
Right.
You have the worst of anarchism and the worst of tyranny. So there are incredibly rigid rules that you will be just destroyed for violating. I mean, if you get something wrong on your tax form, you will go, to jail for this. If you do there's all of these different laws that you can be busted for any different number of felonies that you don't even know about. Like, we all commit like 5 felonies a day without even knowing it, right? But then at the same sense, there's the worst sense of anarchy for people. So you get your car stolen and a cop comes up to you and goes, well, that sure does suck. I can fill out a form and then we'll see you later. But if you defend yourself with, a weapon, then you're going to go to jail. And that's what we're seeing more and more, right? We're seeing the fact that, and this has been going on in San Francisco and Los Angeles and all these places where if someone comes in and steals from your store, we're not really going to prosecute them. But if you pull a gun on them while they're stealing from their store, you might go to jail for a decade. So this is the world that we're living in more and more now. And I think that conservatives are starting to realize that they are the enemy group. So for you to be defending the enforcers of the state, which, let's get real, that's what cops are. For you to be defending them when you're the enemy group is, to borrow a word that some on the right like to use, the ultimate in cucketry.
We're at a point now where we've been watching this for a year. The salon owner, they open the jails and release the criminals, and then put the small business owner in the jail. I mean, that's tyranny. So I made that point. If this continues, conservatives will be less able to vote because they're being charged with felonies. Not even conservatives, like moderates who defend themselves are going to get felony charges. Can't vote, sorry, in many states. I mean, the left might actually give them their right to vote back. In a long enough period of time, it will just detriment the right, and it will scare everyone into being, clearly we don't want to be with whatever that is. I'll just do what the left says. But hold on. What if at this point we said, all right, how about this? No cops. Then what happens? Well, you can keep and bear arms now. You can defend yourself, and you can defend yourself.
Oh, this would be cleaned up in a second. Believe me, all these riots, you don't need Trump to send in the federal goons or anything like that. If you just said, all it takes, and there were a couple like local sheriffs who did this during the riots and basically cleaned up their whole town. Yeah, if you just said, hey, guess what? We believe in the Second Amendment here, and if you go and if there was actually the state behind you on this, and you said, if you go and violate someone's private property and they have a gun, we are not prosecuting them for defending themselves. This thing would be cleaned up. But by the way, can I just make one more point to what you were saying before? What were the few exceptions for the people who were actually prosecuted during all of these riots? The government buildings that were attacked, right? So what is the clear message from the government there? How disgusting is this? Stay away from our property. You go ahead and you vandalize any of the private property you want to. You go terrorize a shoe store owner, go terrorize a bodega, no problem. But you stay away from the state house and you'll be just fine.
Conservatives got to get on board with abolishing the police, and not in every single instance. Small towns are probably fine. But the best example is in Milwaukee when Black Lives Matter, I think it was Milwaukee, they showed up to a guy's house, right? They were protesting in front of his house. One of the guys who organized this had previously been to another mob gathering that set fire to someone's home. So all these people are outside screaming. This guy pulls up his shotgun and points it out the window. The window's closed, but he points it, visibly at the window. When the police show up, Black Lives Matter is clapping and cheering and celebrating as the cops go into this man's home and arrest him. Well, for what? Now, maybe he shouldn't have pointed the gun directly at them, but like I said, the guy who organized this had previously organized another rally where they set fire to a woman's home. They twice. Yeah. Cops came out, put it out. They set fire to it again. So this guy's like, I'm going to show them I'm armed. And you can make an argument of whether he should or shouldn't have done that. I believe people have a right to keep and bear arms. And if you're on your property and people are encroaching on your property and threatening you, he didn't even fire a shot. It was a warning. But here's the point. The cops gleefully arrested him. The worst point, Black Lives Matter celebrated. You know what that means? You think people have been saying they want to abolish the police, they can federalize it. They want to abolish the police to get their woke enforcers in. They don't really want to abolish the police. They want to exert pressure until the police start doing whatever they want out of fear of losing their jobs.
Yeah, well, why do you think they did such a 180 on abolish the police? I mean, as soon as the implications of that started coming out, they were like, well, abolish the police doesn't really mean abolish or defund the police doesn't really mean it.
No, what I mean is the left comes out and says, abolish the police. And the cop goes, I don't want to lose my job. Well, then you better arrest the conservative. You got it. Anything you say, please. Right. I'm begging you, please.
Well, look, I mean, if you're somebody if you are a right winger or a conservative, just think through the implications of actually defunding the police and what that would mean. Well, it's like you said, well, there's nobody's going to arrest you for any type of gun violation. So gun rights are now absolute. They're not going to be able to enforce these stupid regulations on your business. Who's going to be the tax collectors? Who's going to do all of this? It actually leads to a much smaller government world, which would be a much better situation.
And take personal responsibility.
And also, I will say this too, it also takes away what are some of the legitimate criticisms of people on the left, which I'm not saying is like the violent rioters, but there are some people on the left who make a legitimate point that there are cops who go around and harass people in these high crime neighborhoods. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't legitimate criminals in those neighborhoods who deserve to be harassed, but there's also, let's get real, there's a lot of kids who walk around who just look like the suspect that they're trying to go after in these neighborhoods who get harassed, and let them also not be harassed anymore. Also, but the whole war on guns, like the whole gun control regime, I mean, the real victims of it not saying it's the exclusive victims, but the most likely victims of it are people who live in these high crime neighborhoods, who are minorities for the most part, who have guns usually to protect themselves,
and they get charged.
And they get charged. We got guys. We have tons of people in this country, disproportionately black and brown people, who are sitting in cages for decades for the crime of owning a gun.
Yep.
Not doing anything to anyone with that gun, just having a gun. The prohibition on guns has been just as disastrous as the prohibition on drugs, and we should end all of them.
I think the party of personal responsibility should start taking more of it. Because, look, I get it. Maybe there's this vision of like an old-timey era when Officer Friendly was there to protect your community. Now we're at a point where the justice system is basically corrupted. Extremely wealthy leftists started funding district attorneys' races, putting in far-left DAs, people like Kim Foxx, after Jussie Smollett's whole ridiculous, MAGA country garbage. Kim Foxx lets him go. This guy. It was so obvious. This is what happens. The justice system is completely corrupt. But I got to stress, man, the Proud Boys in New York City, 4 years in prison.
Yeah.
If the Proud Boys want to get in a fight with Antifa because Antifa's been threatening and harassing them, then maybe you don't want police to be there to arrest you and put you in prison afterwards when you decide that you are going to confront the problem in the way you think is appropriate. Now, look, I don't think fighting is appropriate. I don't think anybody should be fighting Antifa or the Proud Boys. But if Antifa wants to show up to someone's event and instigate fights, okay, then there's a thing called mutual combat. Okay, maybe that's what we need. The problem is in New York, you can't have guns, you can't protect yourself. If you even consider it, they will lock you up. The problem is that the way I described it recently is, imagine you're at a blackjack table at a casino, and it's a right-wing guy and the left-wing guy. The left-wing guy is counting cards, and you're sitting there going like, he keeps winning. He's winning like, look how much money he's got. I keep losing, because the house always wins. The dealer isn't playing favorites. It's just that they're gaming the system, and the house is gaming you. That's where we're currently at with conservatives defending cops. They're going to keep going after small businesses. Antifa's going to walk around the street with rifles. Now, hold on. They're allowed to do that. You can walk around with a gun. Constitutional right. Keep and bear arms. But they smash out windows, they attack pedestrians, and then draw down on some dude who's driving his truck through the area. No charges.
Guess when police first started in America?
It was the late 1600s, early 1700s.
Yeah, 1636. So it was like night watch groups that would report to like a constable.
Well, it was initially, we had local militias. Some states, I think there were like 2 states, set up slave patrols. From that, the leftists tried arguing that the origin of all police was slave patrols. The idea of centralized law enforcement was actually imported from some European countries. I think it was like Amsterdam or something. And so eventually people started saying, maybe instead of having these ever-escalating conflicts between neighbors and the militia, we just create neutral arbiters who will come down, make the arrest, and the courts can deal with it. We're at a point now where that I think that's a great idea. However, in these blue states, people don't care about your rights and believe they have a right to vote away your rights. So they'll say, like, I don't care what the Second Amendment says. I think we can just decree your right doesn't exist. The Constitution was supposed to stop that. Apparently it doesn't. Now you have conservatives who live in these places who are surrounded by cops who would gladly enforce illegal actions like Bill de Blasio's ridiculous painting, or arrest you for exercising your God-given rights. The state doesn't give them to you. The government doesn't. God did. That's in the Constitution.
Well, the thing that's so infuriating to me is that we've watched, let's just say, just in the 21st century, not going back, the whole history of policing, but just in the 21st century, I mean, we have the most militarized police force in the world. I mean, there's
what does that mean, though?
Well, I'm just saying there's really nothing. There's really no country out there that has as many SWAT units, has as much military gear in their police officers. When I say this, I mean...
But is that because we're a big country? I don't think that's a fair statement.
No, I mean, I think even per capita, even our Department of Education has a SWAT team. The EPA has a SWAT team. I mean, we have a police force. Look it up, I promise you. We have a police force that's just unlike anything else. The NYPD, I think, is in the top 20 biggest armies in the world. Like, it's not just that we're a big country. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. And a lot of it was built up.
The Department of Education has a SWAT team.
Oh, yeah. No, the Department of Education.
All right, you got me there. That's a weird one.
So I'm saying, like, and we have all of this. And if it was ever justified, you'd be like, well, when there's mass riots, this militarized police will make sure to stop it. And then when there are the mass riots, they do nothing. And then, I mean, what is it? I think we have 50,000 SWAT raids on average a year or something like that. I mean, it's something crazy. And you'll have SWAT raids over like alleged drug possession. Sometimes they get the wrong house and just shoot your dog or whatever. They've shot kids before. It's like SWAT raid. You know, if you were to think about it in theory, and we were just talking about it, like when is it appropriate to have a SWAT raid? You'd probably be like, I don't know, like a hostage situation when someone's about to kill someone else, maybe. Not, it's like, I think he's got a no-no plant in his drawer. And they say, so we have this. This is what I mean by the anarcho-tyranny. We have the worst
Certainly to
of
go
the
after
police state.
the former president's lawyer.
Right, exactly.
Do you remember-
Or Roger Stone or something like that. So we have the worst of a police state without any of even the benefits of it. Like they'll protect your property if there's a riot. So,
They're not
I
doing
mean,
that.
you know.
Do you remember the story? There was some guy, I can't remember exactly what it was, so maybe I'm getting a little bit wrong. Fact check me on this one. He put grow lamps in a house. He like rented a house. He put grow lamps in it with like ficus or some stupid house plant. And then he set up cameras and just waited. And then a SWAT team raided the house. And he was like, what are you doing in my, like, what's going on? They jump out with cameras. They're filming all the cops. And they're like, what are you doing? And they apparently tried using grow lamps as justification that they were doing a drug raid.
Wow.
Because they
Were
to be honest,
detecting the energy consumption.
yeah, they could see the energy consumption. And so they made an assumption about what's going on in the house.
And I bet you none of those cops went to jail.
No, but the guy like put it on the internet and he was
Yeah,
like,
sure, and embarrass
Fourth
them.
Amendment violation.
But you know, if we had any type of like just society going here, wouldn't you be like, well, okay, I mean, you just committed a crime, right? You broke into somebody's house. Like any of
listen.
us would go to jail if we did that, but they don't. So, and the other thing that I got to say is that you know, I understand, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like, and there is like a lot of these left wing, you know, cities and states do have these problems. But I got to say, I find something not maybe kind of funny in a dark way, but certainly ironic, that now Joe Biden is turning the war on terror inward, and the target is right-wingers. And even Liz Cheney is like championing this. And I guess I'm just old enough to remember that it was the right-wingers who supported George W. Bush who championed this whole war on terror
but
beginning.
these are not the same
and
people.
mocked.
No, Bill
well,
Kristol
it's a lot
is
of
one
them.
He switched
no,
sides.
I'm not just talking
he's
about.
a Democrat now.
I'm
He's
not
an arms
The,
dealer.
I'm
the Republican Party is not on board with that. Liz Cheney is being booted out.
I'm not talking about just the Republican Party or the ones who went over to the Democratic Party. I'm saying that right-wingers in America voted for Dick Cheney and George W. Bush, and they mocked. I'm not saying all of them, but a large enough percentage of them
hold on, bro.
mocked
That's 20
people.
years ago. So you're
Right,
so
and
you're
now
talking about
now the chickens have come home to roost.
you're talking about 38-year-olds who didn't vote for that, who are now finding themselves conservatives or
Yes.
Republican, being
they
like,
are. That's right. They are paying for the sins of the right wingers who came before
Absolutely.
them.
Absolutely.
Who you know,
But to
really
be fair,
ruined
we talked
yes,
about
a 25-year-old right winger has
we're
no
talking about
responsibility for
standing
that.
on the shoulders of giants and reaping all these benefits. I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. We're paying for the penalties of their failures going back as well.
So much of the problems with this country, and don't get me wrong, I think you can go back to Woodrow Wilson and pretty much blame everything on him. But
all of it.
I mean, yes, and I believe that.
Hey,
It's
Buchanan.
all Woodrow Wilson's fault.
It's really
all
bad.
Woodrow Wilson's fault.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.